Hey everybody, this is Shane from Shane's Books and Review. I hope that you are having a great day today. Here is what we have in store for us today. We're going to be talking about 100 Years of Solitude. It was wrote by Gabriel, García, Márquez, and it takes place over a long time. This is a book that was filled with different types of imagery than what we usually see, and there's already a couple of excellent points that have been brought up by one of you. Thanks to Hector, because he has a very valid point. Some people may get confused on the timeline being that it is kind of split up a bit. I would imagine if you were listening to it on an audiobook, it would be real muddy. And the reason that backs that up is sometimes the familial names are mostly the same, just a little bit different, and some of the names are actually repeated. One of the things I mentioned in the other video is that I really don't enjoy politics that much, because a lot of the times it's people get upset and people can't agree to disagree or disagree to agree or anything between. With the way that it was presented in this book, in between the different factions and this happening, and the politics of the family, it was actually quite intriguing. There was the sprinklings sci-fi throughout the book. There is one lady, she had this aroma about her. There's another person, years down the road, she ends up following after this guy that kind of has the same thing going on with butterflies and a mechanic of sorts. Some of the family politics that are in it, maybe I shouldn't say politics, maybe I should just point out that it was interesting to see that throughout the book, even though some of the people that were in the family tried their best to document things, the characters of the same lineage and the same lines would repeat the same mistakes over and over. Let's talk about the town itself for a second as a character. It kind of is. Whenever we're first starting reading the book, the town isn't even there yet. Over the course of time, trains come in, and then telephones, and there's these bands of gypsies. One sect of the gypsies that were coming in were incredibly knowledgeable, and then they were replaced later on with the gypsies that were just entertainers. During the time span, we go from the first time that they see ice to the first time that they see pictures and cameras. There's a lot of firsts throughout the town over the course of the book. That was a very interesting thing, and it is indeed around Macondo that the entire story develops and slowly closes. Its founder, Jose, I don't think that he was really so happy with the place at first. There's a section where he essentially tells his wife, look, nobody's died here yet. Until somebody dies there, you don't belong there. And she was going to sacrifice herself so that somebody would be in the ground and he would feel more comfortable, I guess. And things just continue on. There are people that end up being these, not necessarily sorcerers, magicians that are in fantasy, but more along the lines of scientists or alchemists in the past. One gentleman comes up with the idea that the earth is round, not flat. The first lab was because of what he did. And really between the pages, I'm not sure if it's the mood that I'm in or if it was intended that way, but there's a whole lot of, not necessarily angst, but anguish for some of the characters that are there. Some of the trials and tribulations that they had to deal with, members of their family or people that came into the town. One of the instances of the trials is whenever the sleep sickness came in. People were forgetting the most simple things, like is this a book? What is its name? I don't know what its name is. I don't know what its function is. Almost like Alzheimer's. And eventually they do come around and they do find things that are cures. The whole issue with the statue, one gentleman's infidelity with his wife. There's all these little things of sorrow that are packaged all the way through the book, but it's not a sad book overall. On the reverse side of that coin, if you flip it around, there's also a lot of accomplishments, scenes where there's happiness involved. And some of those moments of happiness had to do with a lot of things. Of course, the annual gypsy band, and there was one scene where there was a guy that had these iron tabs and he would pull the pots and pans down. Of course, you know it's magnets. The whole reason why that was such a magical thing, I do believe, is because Jose, whenever he founded that, and before he started to delve deeper into sciences and the mysteries of the world, he created that town pretty much of his own perceptions. There was one scene where I believe it was him, and then later on another scene where one of his family lineage had said that it is always Monday, meaning that it was kind of timeless. And the leader of the gypsies at the time, the one that he favored the most, was kind of a rough and tumble kind of a sort. I think I am horribly going to mispronounce this. I am so sorry. I really am. Melquiades. Maybe I should start using Google to tell me what the name is. And then I could be horribly mispronouncing it, because we all know how well Google can pronounce words, right? The two of them kind of strike up a friendship in a way. Jose really depends on him for bouncing ideas about the world and learning about the world. Years down the road, whenever he goes to search him out, he finds out his gypsy friend is no longer alive, and his whole troop is pretty well disbanded. And it was a unique note on how they found the town Macondo. It had to do with the birds. The birds were singing, and that's how the gypsies found them to begin with. It's also interesting to see how the town goes from a place that Jose founds to a place that is rich and just thriving with life, birds and wildlife, and the town is laid out in such a way that it's a marvel with all the people that are brought in whenever Jose's wife goes searching for one of their children and brings back a whole group of people. All the inventions and the almond trees that will live pretty well forever. There's a lot of very unique and very beautifully painted words on the pages of this book. But as it progresses, things don't go so well. People, unfortunately, are people. There's squabbling and infighting, and some people don't really get along with each other that well. Beyond that, there's also some self-discovery moments for a few of the characters, where one is in love with, I believe it was his aunt, but nothing really ever happens between the two of them. There's the chase on a nightly basis until he finally goes somewhere else to bed down. The young family member that feels like he needs to escape and ends up joining up with the gypsies to run off to become a man. It's fanciful tales of people that come back from traveling abroad whenever they bring back disease with them. When it doesn't say the disease spreads, it just says that their bodies are diseased. Rare things that would have been encountered while they were out. From that kind of a standpoint, from that kind of a way of looking at it, of it being such a woven tale between the 7 generations in the family, from one group affecting the next group, affecting the next group, one group saying, these are our sins. Well, it's not wrote that way. I would imagine in the writings that they would say, these are our sins, these are our transgressions, don't do this. You know, this doesn't work out so well. The next generation, maybe not, but the generation after that, yes, indeed. Oh, that's so much better. I've had that eyelash right there the whole time. The whole time I've had that little eyelash right there, and it's been aggravating me so much. There was even points of the book that broke my heart in a way. There was this one person, this Arliano, became the revolutionary leader. There was a feud that broke out. There was this libertarian and a conservative party, and there was a very crooked vote that happened. Then he becomes this iconic leader, this iconic revolutionary guy that, no, we're not going to paint our houses this color, which I understand. I truly, honestly do understand, because not only is it a point of pride, it's you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do, or what my family will do, or what my family's family will do, or what this town will do. Just get out. We can agree to be enemies and just go. And that feud plays on for quite some time. At the end of the book, whenever a character finds out that he's actually related, and everybody's like, no, that's all fictionalized. Our schools teach us this. That couldn't have been what happened. It all stems from generically the Banana Republic, or whatever you want to call it. It was the corporate identities that came in, because that's what I think that represented. It wasn't so much that it was the banana company. It was more that it was these companies that came in that didn't really care about the people, what they were being treated as, how they were being treated, if they were being compensated for their wages or not. That's what that really had to deal with. Some people will probably argue that for progress, sacrifice has to be made. Sacrifice is one thing. Stepping off the back of a people to achieve your goals, take advantage of them, that's not in my humble opinion, the right way of going about things. Which brings me to a point about the author of the book. And I might not be right on this, but I remember reading before I read this book that Gabriel, he grew up during that time period when things were done that way. I think that he himself was involved in some of that. The way that he took the actual events that he would have experienced in life and then fictionalized them to tell a wonderful story like this. How much depth that person really has. And there's so much depth that's in this book. If I were to make a true-on review like I have in the past with some Sherlock books and other books that are out there, I'm afraid that this video would end up 2 to 3 hours long, because it would become something where I would be dissecting the book and going page by page and chapter by chapter and then talking about what this chapter means to this chapter. The book is wonderfully done. And if you're a little bit of a creative, there will be points in the book when you're reading it where you will see these wonderful things that these characters would be, looking at or seeing. One of the funnier things was in the beginning of the book, whenever Jose gets accused of infidelity, and he's like, look, I know you got this chastity belt on. Sure, our kids are going to have pigtails, but you know what? That's it. No more. And he ends up getting in a fight with a really good Can't remember if it was a good friend or not, but with the guy that accused him, then his ghost ends up haunting him. So in the house, he'd be trying to take care of his wounds, like washing it out in the sink, putting new bandages on, etc. Jose was such a guy that he ended up killing a couple of chickens to leave behind so that Prudencio, he wouldn't be absolutely alone whenever they left to found their new town they were going to live in. There's a whole portion of this that needs to kind of be addressed from an outsider, not really knowing the history of the area and not knowing the things that people that live in that area would know. I found a lot of chance metaphors happening, and I got curious. There were so many parallels drawn and things that I thought that I kind of remembered or from my parents talking. There were some things that throughout the course of time are atrocities, catastrophic, not the best examples of humanity whatsoever. And I think that it was executed in a wonderful, wonderful way. And that execution of him tying together his experience and being able to tell the story in a way that would not necessarily be inflammatory or accusatory, but be able to tell it in a way that would show the effect. One of the metaphors has to do directly with Buendia's family, not only the patriarchs of Macondo, but our protagonist, as it were. It has to do with that underdevelopment, the conditions that they were living in. Almost like they were ghosts, they were outside of themselves. They were almost forced to repeat things because they couldn't really get past their own past. They couldn't escape it. It was almost as if they were forced to relive through generations the same things over and over because of the underdeveloped country and the underdeveloped area that they were living in. To me, it's almost like they were almost estranged from themselves, from Macondo, and Macondo itself was certainly very ethereal at points. Another metaphor in there was the colors Gabriel uses, like the yellows with the butterflies and the moths. And it made me really think about Fitzgerald whenever it came to The Great Gatsby. Not that I'm comparing the authors, the way that people had issues trying to get past or break out of the cycle that was keeping them back. Again, some of those outside influences had to do with whenever industrialization came through, the introduction of the railroad, the introduction of this. And even though those things were great technological advances, it did not help the community. And in fact, in the end, it served to, I personally think, kill the town and the town's people. And back to the Fitzgerald thing. Fitzgerald was using the color yellow to represent Daisy. Gatsby's search for her, essentially. I mean, that's an overgeneralization, but we'll leave it be. Whereas Gabriel was using the different colors like gold and yellow for different things altogether. The yellow was more of the transitional death, change, that sort of a thing, where the gold colors was more of like the Spanish imperial. It was good use at good times, is what I'm getting at. It also seems to me like this is almost like a book of discovery. Like somebody for me that, before I say this word, please understand the real definition of ignorant. Ignorant is something that can be cured. It just simply means that you don't know about a subject. Ignorance can be replaced with knowledge, because if you are ignorant, you become aware that you are ignorant of it, then the discovery can be made. And this book is like a seed. Once you read it and you get curious and then you start to research it and you find out more and more, you realize how genius this book really is. Márquez, he's made almost like a linear history that is like a magical history or a magical fantasy. There's enough sprinklings of what actually happened that if you wanted to, you could use this book to learn about the history of Latin America in a very profound way that you can feel at times. I mean, it hits you, some of the stuff that's in there. It's not a shallow book at all. Approach it from the right angle. It can really clue you in to a lot of things that you probably aren't aware of. And that, for me, is one of the reasons why I liked it. The secondary reason why I liked it was, again, the metaphors, the use of metaphors, and the book itself as a metaphor for the parallels between the development of Latin America, the Europeans coming in, America being developed, the characters themselves. Gabriel didn't spend a whole lot of time on character development like Stephen King would, right? But he didn't have to. He shouldn't have. Not with this book. This book was, I wouldn't change anything about it. I respect 100 Years of Solitude for what it is. It's a very well wrote book. It can open the eyes of people that maybe didn't know. Would I recommend that you read this book? Is it something that you can't live without? Whenever I think about the things that I use to recommend to people that are watching this, the genre that I'm in, of being space sci-fi, just any good sci-fi, but mostly space and detective type novels, this really falls outside of that. But this is such a good book. I have no fear in recommending it to you. It was recommended to me by, again, Hector Garcia, and he is a phenomenal individual. If you've never seen or you don't know who that is, if you ever have a training need, and no, this isn't sponsored or solicited, he didn't ask me to do this at all. I've met him, he's a great guy. I trust him whenever it comes to that sort of a thing as well. So if you have anything that you want to learn about QuickBooks, check out his channel. There should be a link popping up here. Great guy. Beyond me having my gush of platitudes, which are actually coming from the heart. They're not just, hey, yeah, this guy, yeah, check him out. Now, I want to know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the book, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the book, give it a thumbs down. But so here we go. Like, share, subscribe. Today's book was 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Márquez. This has been Shane with Shane's Books and Review, and I will see you in the next video.